ladies and gentle people, to another episode of Voltz. I am, of course, Tommy Voltz. And if you haven't seen my show before, welcome back to the podcast. I appreciate you tuning in. And now let's jump right into this. We're kind of in a Twilight zone, in a sense, in actually most aspects of life right now. But in this first thing I'm going to feature, this is like, holy crap. So, CNN's, I'm drawing a blank in her name. This is terrible. I know. Aaron Burnett. That's her name. So CNN's Aaron Burnett featured John Hinckley Jr. tonight on her episode of her show. Now, if you don't know who he is, quick history lesson. John Hinckley Jr. was the attempted assassin of Ronald Reagan. He actually did shoot him, and he left another agent permanently disabled and severely injured for the rest of his life. So that kind of fuels my somewhat hesitation or maybe a negative persona or thought of why he would be invited to speak on any show. I mean, granted, I guess you could say he is certainly in a negative aspect an icon of history, but I mean, again, pushing that idea of a negative icon, I don't see why he was allowed to even do this, but regardless of my thoughts, he was. So let's go ahead and listen to a little bit of this, and then I'll continue my thoughts on that.
John, you know, it's fascinating to speak to you tonight. After Thomas Matthew Crooks shot Trump, you spoke out, you posted on social media, you said, violence is not the way to go. Give peace a chance. Why do you feel the need to speak out?
Well, Aaron, I feel the need to speak out because this country is just in a really bad place right now. There's so much violence, so many guns, and it's just really a fraught time right now in America. And I wanted to speak out as someone who knows a little bit about what happened because of what happened with me in 1981. So I wanted to speak to the American public and just tell people to please try and reject violence and bring peace and love into their life.
I know you have expressed.
Now, of course, I want to be clear. I do fully comprehend the concept of redemption and forgiveness, and you can't hold one person's mistake against them for the rest of their lives. But, you know, we're not talking about, a case of cheating in a relationship or something. This is, he attempted to murder, assassin Ronald Reagan. And yet he is free and able to go on news shows now and move freely, mostly. I want to stand corrected on that, though. I forgot to say, I guess he is still under some kind of monitoring. And so I do get that. But still, it's interesting that a would-be assassin is now able to do this kind of thing. But that's just my take on it. It's kind of hard for me to formulate too much verbiage on that, I guess, because, like, it is such, and it's surreal. It's just surreal. Okay, so that's that one. The other thing is, I don't have this pulled up on the display right now, but the other thing is, earlier this week, Trump spoke at the National Association of Black Journalists, and what a freaking disaster that was. What a disaster. His advisors had to be placing their heads inside their hands and just like, oh my God. And it's a real shame, because I'm looking at this strictly as an armchair political commentator. That's all I am, folks. If you ever get any hint of me being biased one way or another, you're definitely getting the wrong vibe from me. Because I always have said, and I said this in my previous videos too, that I am likely to not make too many friends on either side of the aisle. Because when it comes to social issues like things like abortion and gay marriage, which is really actually just human rights, I am very much aligning myself with I guess you would call it the liberal, that side of it. But really, it's not even liberal versus conservative to me. Like I said, it's just human decency, human rights, and not being bigoted in terms of gay marriage. In terms of abortion, again, that falls under, in my opinion, women's rights to choose. And I strongly feel that a man is never in any position at the legislative level to make a piece of legislation that limits what a woman can do with her own body. That's just insane to me. And that will never change. I am solid in my foundation on that. Then again, those same liberals or liberal-minded individuals that might go, yes, I agree with you on that, TJ, will also maybe distance themselves when I say on economic policies and government regulations and the border crisis. I am definitely more conservative. I lean in that direction. I think the border crisis is absolutely grotesque. It's terrible. And what's happening to this country in terms of assistance that is going and the resources going to that border crisis and the migrants coming in could be going, all those resources could be going to Americans that are struggling, who may fall between the cracks or may not be severe and hopeless, but just need a helping hand, or the poverty level population as well. And so that is something where I think that maybe if not a conservative view of mine, it's something that I view as there's a time and place where it's okay to have a more America-focused or America-first mindset, and that's where I come in that way. But so it's definitely on what we call a mixed bag, I guess. But anyhow, so now we got that disclosure out of the way. But this latest whatever you want to call it, chaos with Trump was just another example of, I don't even know what it was. It's a shame because Trump had revitalized energy like no other candidate in any other election cycle. I mean, come on, how often does that happen? That a political candidate for office of the president gets almost assassinated. And it really was an almost assassination, too. I mean, I know some on the liberal side of it will make jokes or say, oh, come on, but no, it really was. I mean, he got struck by a bullet. The Secret Service confirmed it in his ear. At least it whisked him and caused bleeding. So, I mean, that was an assassination attempt by all definitions. And this is very murdered sounding, but again, I'm coming at this strictly politically in terms of like strategy-wise. He had so much momentum, so much energy coming out of that. I mean, when he stood up and raised his fist, and his ears all bloody, and everyone was cheering at that rally. And granted, it was very tragic because somebody lost his life, and another person was seriously injured, and that is very, very tragic. So I don't mean to make light of that. But what I'm saying is, he had all this political energy behind him. And it kind of carried over into the first couple of nights of the Republican National Convention. But by the time his night came to speak, not only was that a disaster, I shouldn't say disaster, it wasn't great. It was a long-winded speech that Trump gave at the convention, yada, yada. You all probably saw it if you follow politics at all. It wasn't great. It was classic Trump for better or worse. But this week at the National Association of Black Journalists Conference, Trump has never walked on eggshells with his language, and he has never shied away from making bombastic comments. But what concerns me is when he said that Kamala Harris was not always black, and he made other just asinine, ridiculous comments. What that tells me is that his advisors are not stressing to him, like in his face, they need to almost like be pushing against him, saying, Trump, you are not as safe as you think you are in this election. He needs to realize that kind of crap may have gotten elected in 2016 with Clinton. But what he fails to understand, or maybe he does understand, was that Hillary Clinton was almost universally disliked. Maybe not universally, but a lot of progressives and liberals and certainly certainly conservatives and Republicans did not like Hillary Clinton. They didn't want to see her in that position, but yet she was. And she still got a ton of votes more than Trump did in the popular vote, but it just wasn't what people were passionate about, is what I'm trying to say. But with that being said, this is monumentally different. Kamala Harris is much more well-liked than Clinton was in 2016. She has the experience of not only a former prosecutor, but also as a few years as vice president. And she has just a different firebrand of personality than Clinton did. And I say Clinton and not Biden because, 2020 was a very different time. And, we were just getting out of the grasp of COVID. And it was just a mess, just an absolute mess. And if it hadn't been such a mess, I question whether Joe Biden would have won in 2020. And, okay, so recapping all these things, of course, Joe Biden stepped out of the race, which, it actually took me by surprise. I have to admit it did, because there was a lot of pressure on him, but Joe Biden has faced monumental pressure in the past and didn't do a damn thing except stay in the, do what he was going to keep doing. And this time, though, he did bow out to pressure, and he did step aside. And that was shocking to me, because Biden had expressed many times that he thought he was the best option to beat Trump, especially since he did it in 2020. So I was shocked that Biden chose to step aside. So the gamble now becomes, or the question now becomes, was that a gamble for Democrats in November? Only time will tell. We have about 3 months or so to go until Election Day, and only time will tell if the Democrats made a bad gamble. It's like the show Deal or No Deal. I always jokingly say it's like when the contestants find out if they made a good deal or not. Only time will tell if the Democrats made a bad deal or a good deal. And it's a question, because I think in some ways, no, I shouldn't say that. Actually, let me rephrase this. In most ways, I think it was a good move, because let's face it, let's call it like I see it. Yes, some will disagree with me on this, but I think it's clear from the way that just his body language, his demeanor, his speaking, Biden is diminished, even more so than he was in 2020. And that's okay. That's normal. I mean, people age. And when you get to age 80, not everyone is the same as others at age 80. And it's not like anyone is attacking Biden. Well, certainly the conservatives and Republicans that hate Biden will attack him. But we who are, as I like to say, in between, or in my case, just a political commentator, I'm not picking on Biden. I'm just saying the reality is he should not be doing that position when he is that diminished physically and mentally exhausted, for sure. I'm not saying dementia. Some people like to throw that around. Not me. I'm not saying it. I don't think it's dementia. It could be. I'm not a doctor, but he definitely has some diminished function. Let's say that. So he did the best thing he could by dropping it out or stepping aside. And so now here we are in August. And Kamala Harris just today secured enough delegates during the roll call vote to secure the nomination for president. So it's full steam ahead now. And we'll see what happens in November. And up until that, it's going to be an interesting race until then. Time has moved so fast and so historically just shocking in the last month or two. And I can't wait to see what happens next. So stay tuned, guys. You can tune into this podcast. I'll be doing coverage. And guys, it won't be all politics. It'll be all kinds of stuff. I'll be doing reviews again, everything from food to tech to life discussions, anything. So I'll see you guys in my next episode. Until then, peace out for now, and please stay well.